almost died twice before the age of 11.
Mm.
And you learned a very important lesson of just really how fragile life is. When I was 10 years old, I got into a snowmobile accident and my throat got crushed. And I had 1 in 10 chance of living. My esophagus, my trachea, my vocal cords, my larynx, all of it was destroyed. They told me I would never speak again. So imagine being 10 years old in a hospital bed practicing sign language. That was literally my world. And,
That is
you
crazy.
not being able to eat food for over a year, um, having to breathe out of a hole in your throat for a couple of years, and you after having 34 surgeries, went through hell and back. But now I see that day, January 16, 2000, which is when I got in my accident,
Mm.
is the second best day of my life. Right after marrying my wife, I like to say I've been blessed with adversity. So, it's a big part of what shapes how I think, how I act,
Mhm.
and how I operate every day. So, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Seeds of Success podcast. This is your host, Colin Walters, and today we have a very powerful human being on the show with us. We have Justin J. Johnson, who by the age of 11 almost died twice. He had a crazy snowmobile accident at age 10, sent him to have 34 different surgeries, was not able to eat food for an entire year, and then later on in life, just found himself at a point where enough was enough and he was tired of being average, making $0 in commissions in his first year ever in sales. And then ultimately making the decision to become somebody different. He went on to become number one rep at Salesforce, Sales Extraordinaire, CRO by age 33, recognized as a top CRO in tech by age 34, helped build, scale, and exit multiple companies, and now is the CEO and founder of his own sales coaching and consulting business. And he's also just a super fascinating individual. And we had a phenomenal conversation. We actually also he flipped it back to me, talked a little bit about my sabbatical that I'm about to go on. I share details that I haven't shared before around how I'm leaving in 3 days. I have a one-way ticket to Bali. I don't have much of a plan other than that. Go into some of the details around that. Also go into, tactics and strategies around your own development, sales, coaching, investments in yourself, how to become a better version of yourself professionally and personally. And it was just a super enjoyable, valuable, and powerful conversation to have. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here we go, bringing Justin J. Johnson onto the show. All right, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Seeds of Success podcast. Justin J. Johnson, pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
Pleasure to be here. I'm excited to have a good conversation.
Me too. I'm excited to dive in. Tons of accolades your way, tons of life that's also come your way, right? Sales extraordinaire, CRO by age 33, recognized as a top CRO by age 34. But you also have a pretty wild story, Justin. Almost died twice by the age of 11. And so, without further ado, I want to go ahead and give you the floor to introduce yourself to the audience here because your story is powerful and inspiring. And so, I want to go ahead and allow you to kind of roll into your origin story and share with the audience who you are.
I mean, origin story is a pretty interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned it. A big thing that I've been able to leverage, to help me achieve some pretty good things and really just be on a really nice journey is the fact that I almost died twice before the age of 11. And you learned a very important lesson of just really how fragile life is. When I was 10 years old, I got into a snowmobile accident and my throat got crushed. And I had 1 in 10 chance of living. My esophagus, my trachea, my vocal cords, my larynx, all of it was destroyed. They told me I would never speak again. So imagine being 10 years old in a hospital bed practicing sign language. That was literally my world. And,
That is
you know,
crazy.
not being able to eat food for over a year, um, having to breathe out of a hole in your throat for a couple of years, and you after having 34 surgeries, went through hell and back. But now I see that day, January 16, 2000, and which is when I got in my accident,
Mm,
is the second best day of my life, right after marrying my wife.
mm.
So that was a very interesting start to the childhood,
That is
and
crazy.
yeah, it was pretty wild. I mean, of course, as a kid, you don't realize
Hmm.
how much that's going to shape you. As a kid, you just want to be normal,
Hmm.
right? That's all I want. I just want to be like everyone else. Um, but because of that, if you think about it, the first one for my family to go and graduate from college.
Hmm.
I was the youngest of five boys, and we grew up in blue collar, working construction. It was a lot of my family background. And coming out of school, I was the golden child, right? If you think about it, hey, you survive this thing,
Hmm.
God has a big plan for you, right? As you can imagine, everyone says, and not only surviving that, but almost dying at birth as well. Obviously, I don't remember that,
Hmm.
but that was another story all in itself. And you have to go through that. Coming out of school, you expect to, take the bull by the horns. I graduated college all full of piss and vinegar,
Hmm.
ready to crush it. And
No doubt.
that's it's the exact opposite of what happened. I fell flat on my face.
Mm.
But we can get into that. But it was a very interesting journey that I've been on. I like to say I've been blessed with adversity. So, it's a big part of what shapes how I think, how I act,
Mhm.
and how I operate every day. So, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Mm. You mentioned that's not what happened as you got out of college. What do you mean by that? What happened?
Well, so I stumbled into sales.
Yeah, classic.
Um, Classic, right? A friend of mine says sales is the island of misfit toys, right? And
Mm. I
I
can
think it's
relate.
a really good example, right? No one like is growing up and like, what do you want to be, Johnny, when you grow up? I want to be a salesman. No
I
one
want to
says that.
sell insurance.
Yeah, no one does that.
Software.
So, so I stumbled into it. In fact, actually, it was selling knives, selling Cutco.
Hmm.
I know a lot of people do that in college. I did
Oh
the
yeah.
same, and I did very well. I wasn't good at sales, but I did well as the Cutco sales rep because I was just very persistent. I didn't know that at the time.
Mm.
But coming out of college, I thought I was going to crush it. I was a little entitled, a little, ignorant and to what greatness requires. And I came out, made all the wrong decisions and joined the company that I joined for the wrong reasons. And because of that, and I didn't have the right mindset, I was horrible, candidly. My first year in sales, I literally made $0 in commission. I sold one deal, and that one deal canceled. So,
Oh my
my
God. It's a gut
yeah,
wrencher.
it was
Got a good
brutal.
old
It was
clawback.
brutal. Yeah, and if you think about it, a lot of people struggle, in their first gig.
Hmm.
So I'm not special in that point, but when you think about the magnitude of where I was, so you picture this: I'm leaving my boss's office after he just basically had his first like pip conversation with me, right? Like, hey, things need to improve or else.
Hmm.
And I'm just feeling this like massive level of like defeat because I was expected to do great things for my family,
Hmm.
right? I came out of college thinking that I was just going to take the bull by the horns and just, you know, tear it up. I didn't. I was making 30K a year gross pre-tax, and I was $100,000 in debt. And I was just in a really dark place. And that was a really tough day, right? And I'd have a really tough conversation with myself. I'm happy to go into that if you like. But
Of course.
yeah, by all means, I was doing everything wrong. I didn't know it at the time, but I was doing everything wrong. My day to day, I didn't have the right mindset. I was in the wrong environment. And yeah, it was basically a cocktail for failure.
Mm.
And I was living in it pretty hard.
So what was that conversation with yourself?
It was a pretty brutal one because
Mm,
the excuse or the story that I was telling myself was, hey, it's not my fault. I'm I don't know any better. And when I took a step back and just started asking myself the really hard questions, which is, hey, what are you doing to develop yourself outside of your company? Hey, what are you
mm,
doing to find people that are better than you to learn from? Hey, what are you doing to really be aggressive? And are you really working as hard as you can? And the answer to all those questions were like nothing or no.
mhm,
I mean, it's really honest. Like I was showing up to work every day, but I wasn't being intense about, how I executed my day. I was just showing up and going through the motions. I wasn't trying to invest in myself and study things outside of my work hours. I wasn't doing anything to be proactive. And, I was basically being average. I was being mediocre.
mhm,
And I was just being reactive to my environment.
mhm,
And I wasn't doing anything to take action to try to improve it. And when I had that realization, when I had those answers of, look, you're not doing what's in your control, and you marry that with, hey, you went through all of this shit and you almost died,
mhm,
and you've been through hell literally for years to get to this. What the hell's wrong with you? Because you have this experience and this perspective on how fragile life is. Most people don't realize how mortal they really are until their health starts to decline much later in life,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
I was given that blessing at a very young age, and I wasn't doing anything with it. So it's just like the universe was like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
mhm,
And that's when I really just asked myself, like, look, like, what are you going to do about it? Right. And that's when, I made the decision to, hey, I'm done being a loser. Like, it's really that simple. Like, I'm done being like this.
mhm,
I'm done, not taking accountability, not taking responsibility, not taking action to improve my situation. Right. I'm done with it.
mhm,
Right. I'm broke. I'm miserable. I'm failing. Like, this sucks. I hate this feeling. I refuse to live this way anymore. And that conversation is really what changed everything. And
mhm,
then from there, I took action. I worked to change my environment, worked to invest in myself. Find people that have done what I'm trying to do whatever I can to learn from them. Um, study success and implement it, but then also just raise my level of intensity I bring to every day. Right. Um, and then when I did all of those things, crazy concept, all my results changed.
mhm.
I went
Look at
from
that.
failing miserably to less than a year later, number one at Salesforce. Right. And I just apply that same mindset from that tough conversation, like still to this day. And that's what helps me just like bring intensity every day, just study people. Right. But it all stemmed from like that conversation and just
Mhm,
saying like, hey, I'm done being a loser. Right. Just because you graduated from college, just because you did things that other people around you haven't done before, the world doesn't owe you anything.
mhm,
No one's coming to save you. Grow up.
mhm,
Right. And that's just the wake up call I had that day that I just never forgot.
mhm. I hear a couple different things. Number one is you, of course, had a hard conversation with yourself and asked yourself tough
Yeah.
questions, but the questions were around things that were within your control, right? Sounds like you were asking yourself about effort, about attitude, about environment, about the things that you could go and immediately put into place by being proactive. I mean, you mentioned the word reactive, right? And I think a lot of us, myself included at times, can fall into
Yeah.
that line of being, which is being reactive instead of actually going out and making shit happen.
Yep.
And so I think that with this conversation, it transformed you into this like mindset shift is what it appears. And then from there, you just actually went and did the things, changed your environment, invested in yourself, you mentioned, right? And so what I'm curious about is like, if somebody is and also got to this point of one of, if not your rock bottom at that point of time in your life, right? Which we've all either had something similar or paralleled or had a rock bottom of some sort. Obviously, everybody's bottoms are different and the valleys are different, but that's not to say we all don't go through shit. And
Yeah.
then we all have that option to actually go and do something about it, right? Mine was a DUI 7+ years ago that, allowed me to the opportunity to wake up in jail on Thanksgiving, have my dad come bail me out, that whole thing. That was my like, okay, but what are we going to do from here?
Yeah.
Right. And so then that's where my personal journey came into play. And, here we are years later, um, with a ton of success and accolades to show for it similarly. And so, from that point for you, Justin, it sounds like you went from $0 in commission to within a year is what it sounds like. Number one, AE at Salesforce in whatever capacity that means. What were like two or three of the things that you literally actually did though, that if somebody's
Yeah.
listening, right, it's like, okay, I can go and start working on this today, not tomorrow, but today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just to clarify, when I say number one, I was early in my career, so I was jumping as SDR. Then I got
Mm-hmm.
promoted. Then I moved in
Dope.
AE. I did well there. So I
Yep.
just want to call it out.
Cool.
But let me ask you this:
Mm-hmm.
how did it feel when you were in jail on Thanksgiving Day?
It was the first time I'd ever actually legitimately prayed in my life, right? Because something needed to change. And
Mhm.
it felt horrible. I was supposed to be running my turkey trot, right? I was supposed to be running my 5K. And instead, I have my parents worrying sick about where I am, what I was doing, not answering calls. And then they're getting, a phone call from the county jail to come and pick up their son from, from jail on Thanksgiving. And so it felt like a whole bunch of shame, guilt, um, darkness. It felt like a what the fuck are we doing in life
Yeah,
is what it felt like.
yeah.
Similar to like what you kind of shared is how it felt. What about you?
And I mean, that's what it is. It's like just like it's like yeah. I just felt like the biggest pile of shit in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And on paper or on the surface from the outside, it was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this guy got his degrees. In the corporate world, he's figuring, working to figure things out. Obviously, he's early in his career. But because I had that perspective of almost dying,
Mm-hmm.
it made it easier for me to create a rock bottom
Mm-hmm.
out of a rock bottom that wasn't as severe as yours, if that makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get, I didn't have this like massive DUI experience or like some like drug issue, which,
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people have, right? And, when you leverage rock bottom, it's a hell of a foundation to build off of. But some people, when you think about that, like that shame, that guilt, that horrible situation, that's the springboard,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's why I say I was so blessed with almost dying because I know what it's like to be in the hospital for months. I know what it's like to be, literally people say like, hey, we don't know how this is going to turn out,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I know what it's like to go through those things.
Mm-hmm.
And because I experienced it, like it wasn't like I didn't see a movie, like I lived it for years. So because I went through that like brutal hell,
Yeah.
when I was going through something that was like, hey, we're starting to go this is like a wrong direction,
Mm-hmm.
I could stop myself, create that rock bottom right there and jump,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where a lot of people, unfortunately, they have to go to a much farther bottom to jump, right? To springboard off. And I think the challenge with a lot of people, from what I've seen from the people that I've coached and mentored over the years, is they're not good enough at creating and extracting pain and magnifying it proactively to leverage that to accelerate a transformation,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense, right?
Leveraging pain.
leveraging pain, but not even leveraging pain, but recognizing that smaller pain is
Mm-hmm.
a leading indicator to bigger pain.
Mm.
And the bigger pain is something that they
See.
won't feel
Mm-hmm.
for decades. Like, for example, like an
Mm-hmm.
example is like, hey, you eat unhealthy
Mm-hmm.
as a kid in your 20s or 30s, right? You don't really, really feel that till your 40s and 50s, and like your health really starts to feel the impact of that,
Mm-hmm.
right? For like the average American diet, where like the average American's obese. That's like 50% of Americans are obese.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you don't really feel like the impact of that for years,
Mm-hmm.
right? A long time. Whereas if you can identify those early signs, you could say, hey, if I'm going down this road, people that, to use the stay on the food train, people that eat like this 30 years from now, I see what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what I noticed was going back to my sales career, my profession, I was like, hey, this me not working as hard as I can, hey, this thing of like me not really giving it my all, I've seen a lot of people do that. I don't want that life,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's like number one. I don't want that life, right? And I've been through hell. Like cold calling isn't hard compared to like what I've been through,
No doubt.
right? I'm not saying it doesn't suck sometimes, right? But it's nothing when it's all relative, right? Um,
For sure.
and those are the types of things of like if you can identify, hey, I'm slipping on quota, or if I'm not doing as well as I could, but if you can identify like that little pain
Mm-hmm.
and you can zoom in, right? Zoom into that pain and say like, well, what happens if this whole, I'm not giving my all. I'm working like, let's say a 6 or 7 out of 10 in terms of like level of intensity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the near term, it probably won't have that big of effect. Maybe I'll make a little bit less money this year. Maybe it'll take me 2 or 3 years to get promoted instead of 1 year, right? So in terms of that scale, it's not big. But if you zoom out 20, 30 years from now, that compounds
Mm-hmm.
because that, instead of increasing your income by, 50 or 100K a year, you're increasing it by 10 or 20. All right, well, you compound that over a decade or two,
Mm-hmm.
right? 10, 20, 30 years from now, you're going to be maxing out, to use the income as you're going to max out like 150, 200K if you're in like the sales or tech sales world, which look, don't get me wrong, that's a good income, in terms of like against the average, but objectively speaking, you're going to be just above average,
Mm-hmm.
right? And at least for me, when I zoomed out, it's like I don't want to be above average. Like I don't want that. And so by me being able to zoom in and magnify that situation that I was in of like, okay, I'm gonna really hit hard on this and not let myself off the hook.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I can create this like level of pain that is my rock bottom. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like that's kind of my thought process of how I went through and just one of the things that I do with my clients because the people that work with me, they're hungry, right? They're hungry for more. That's why they invest in, coaching. But even though they're hungry and, they'll join, I'll say like, hey, we need to dig into like what's possible for you. We need to help you like really unleash your full potential because like that's what this is about, right? This isn't about helping you do better discovery calls, right? It's not about that. This is about helping you live life on your terms,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we have to reframe how you think about life and what we're doing here, right? And that's the whole goal. So that's a little bit of how I think about it. Now you mentioned what are some tactical things people can do?
Before we go to tactical,
Okay.
can I pause
Okay.
you real quick because I think
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot to unpack there, and I think we're getting to you know the core, right? We're talking about mission, we're talking about your why, we're talking about purpose driven life, we're talking about like the core fundamentals of why you are existing on this planet, right? And I think ultimately, if I'm interpreting correctly, it's you almost saw what you didn't want first, which is I don't want to be average. I don't
Yeah.
want to just be living at this 6 out of 10. I don't want to just continue existing without excelling, right? Which also then allowed you to have that conversation, ask those questions, and then do something about it with a mindset shift. Yes, of course, but also with the things that you were implementing daily, right? And it showed you that, this life that you did want to be great and you did want more for your life and you did want to take advantage of everything that you've been blessed with, the opportunities to live twice essentially, right after, narrowly escaping death and going through 34 surgeries. That's insane, by the way. And, like actually, having this sense of like, that's what I don't want. Here's what I do want. Was there, what I'm curious about is, with greatness and excelling in your career and taking advantage of life, was there also other things pulling you forward? Or did you have like a vision for where you wanted your life to go? Or were you like, enough is enough? I just want to focus on being great and then allow that vision to build. Like, how did you think about the vision for your life at that age? And I'm sure that progresses over time, but that's what I'm curious about.
Yeah. The vision in the beginning was just like, stop sucking.
Yeah,
Right. The vision in
totally
the
fair.
beginning is,
Same here.
yeah, the vision in the beginning was,
Mhm.
I can't live like this anymore.
Yep.
Right. That's what it was. It was
Pain.
more just like
Going back to the
running.
pain.
Right. Right. So that was the vision in the beginning. And then it's like, all right, I got to start cranking.
Mm.
Right. I just got to bring intensity every day. And like, that was just my goal.
Yep.
And just take action and just like actually be hungry. Right. Like
Yep.
not
No
just
doubt.
say you're hungry like everyone does, but like actually be hungry.
Yep.
And then as I started to see success,
Mhm.
then, escaped from, Maslow's hierarchy of like food, water, shelter.
Mhm.
Right. And then I was able to get above water a little bit. And then I could think, all right, now let's think strategically.
Mm.
Right. Now let's, really start to think about a North Star with a little bit more clarity where in the beginning, when I had that tough conversation with myself, like my North Star was like anywhere but here.
Mm.
Right. Um,
Mm.
but it's definitely evolved, of course, right? My North Star has, changed many times, but, it wasn't like I had that tough conversation. It was like, hey, 5 years from now, this is my role, this is my income. This, I was like, no, no, no,
Mhm.
just don't be a piece of shit,
Mhm.
right? Which is what you are, which is what I was equating myself to because I was able to magnify my pain,
Mm.
right? Even though I didn't have like substance abuse problem, none of that. Like I'm
Mhm.
not going to sit here and pretend that I did, right? But I was mediocre and I couldn't stand it. So that's how it started.
Cool. So then okay, so then it's hey, let me just be better today.
Yep.
And then you mentioned some of there's tactical things that you did. Now, if we want to transition back into that, and sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just thought that it was
Yeah.
important to kind of double click into that. So yeah, the tactical piece.
I mean, tactical things is the most important thing is like you got to invest in mentors,
Hmm.
right?
No doubt.
And that was like the tactical thing that I did.
Hmm.
So I found people that were doing what I wanted to do.
How
You
simple.
know, how simple is it? I just found people that were doing like at that time, I wasn't even really even in tech yet. I
Mm.
was in sales, but I wasn't in tech. And someone told me when I was younger that like, hey, to be the best, you learn from the best. Like
Hmm.
that simple.
Hmm.
So it started with
So
all right,
simple.
finding people that were successful in sales
Right.
because I knew I wanted to be in sales because from my experience at Cutco, one of the things that I realized through that experience is, okay, I have more control over my destiny in sales versus finance or accounting or all of those things, right? Which
Hmm.
are fine professions,
Hmm.
but I want to control over my career. And for me, I felt sales was the best vehicle for that. So I knew it was sales and I just found people that were really good at sales. And at the beginning, it was like, how do I make a lot of money?
Hmm.
Right? How do I make a lot of money? Because I'm broke as hell
Hmm.
and I got to figure this out.
That'll do it.
So, so I just found people that were making a lot of money and
Yeah.
I started studying them. And then I looked at, all right, how do I put myself in the right environment? Right. Because environments matter.
Mm.
One of the things I learned through that experience was, the company that I joined, it wasn't set up for someone of my lack of experience to join.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I always say to people now, and I every semester I go back and speak to my alma mater, to their sales program, and the students are always asking, "Hey, what type of advice do you have coming out of college?" That type of stuff. And one of my biggest things I say is like, "Don't join startups.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Don't join startups. Like startups are sexy and all. I get it. Everyone wants to be the next Facebook, right? Number one, there's only one Facebook, right? Only one in 250 companies ever make it past 10 million in revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So most startups fail.
Mm-hmm.
And even the startups that succeed, until they succeed, they still have zero grasp of how to train and develop young people that don't have career, experience or foundations built.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined an environment as like the fifth or sixth employee. There was no structure. There was no ongoing development. Right? It was I got a couple days of training. I was like, go get them. Right? And I didn't know any better at the time because I didn't know what I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized that I need to get into an environment where I could just be around hungry people. And so I worked to get myself uh, at Salesforce after I made the decision to get into tech. Because I was torn between a couple industries, and I decided on tech. And Salesforce was like my number one choice. I was looking at a couple companies, but I really wanted Salesforce because of the pedigree, the talent of people that were there. And as you knew, it's going to be an environment that if I could just be around people that were better than me, just study the hell out of everybody, it was going to make it a lot easier for me to grow and develop. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I found people. I studied them, took everyone I could out to lunch,
Mm-hmm.
right? And as soon as I
Same
could like
shit.
find like a professional mentor and a coach. Like the first time I invested in a coach, myself, I was literally $100,000 in debt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I have no clue if this is going to work. But when I studied the most successful people,
Mm-hmm.
like the people that I looked up to, the Mark Benioffs, the Richard Bransons of the world, right? The Oprah Winfrey's, the Obamas, right? Nelson Mandela, like the most successful people are objectively in the world at the time. They all did a couple things in common. Um, and one of those things was they all invested very heavily in coaches and mentors. So for me, I took that as okay, to be the best, you learn from the best. They are the best. They all do this same thing. Clearly, it must work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm broke as hell. I have no idea how I'm going to afford this, but I'm going to throw it on a credit card and we'll see. And then, of course, the rest is history. Like that's like a tactical thing, that I did that like changed my life, and I
Mm-hmm.
still do that to this day. But just finding the right mentor, the right person that's done what you're trying to do, and like do everything that you can to get as much information as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I started with free mentors, which is great. If there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, but there's also a difference between someone who you're picking their brain at a lunch to someone that you're paying to get results, right? It's just a very different relationship. So, when I went down that path, like everything really changed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like just number one massive thing. And then just always, just always seeking advice, right? Just doesn't matter what it is. You can always learn something from anybody, always seeking advice and then just implementing it and implementing it and implementing it and just never stopping. Right. And that's the tactical thing that I did when I was in that dark spot. And every single point of my career, I've done that. And anytime I've had a little bit of a lull in my career, when I took a step back and reflected, it was because I stopped being proactive with getting advice and getting coaching and getting mentors. Right. It's like a one-to-one correlation for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was it. Right. It's not rocket science. And I didn't invent it because I learned from people that have already done things that I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just what I did.
The common thread I hear with everything is you took your own development into your own hands, right? And you were
Yeah.
proactive to go seek out the mentor, seek out the coaching, take your own money out of your pocket where you're massively in debt and invest it into yourself without any expectation of what the outcome or result is going to be, but then just take action imperfectly, I would imagine, until things just started happening and until you continue to learn from specifically people that have been in the shoes you are trying to walk, right? I think it just is such a no-brainer. And I want to just go back to your earlier point around the environment, because that's exactly how I got into tech sales. It's not that I always, going back to our earlier conversation, I didn't dream about being tech sales, when I was 9 years old, having to
Yeah.
write shit down in class, right? But, one thing led to another. I did something similar. I was selling isogenics shakes, like right
There we
after
go.
college. I was coaching baseball, doing Spanish tutoring, like just piecing it all together, doing
Yeah.
some, sales stuff, sold some baseball equipment like at tournaments and stuff. And but found that knack for sales. That led me to one conversation at a wedding that allowed me to get into the insurance industry. And so then that's where I got, you know, built my business development reps, cold calling, knocking doors, doing that whole thing. And then it was, I had this like, I was ready to take that next step in my career, and I could have stayed insurance industry. I could have tried some other little boutique firms around the area. I thought about real estate. But then I also had this other company that was in the tech world, and I just saw the environment and the types
Mhm.
of individuals that I was attracted to from what they were doing, the development that was being offered, the mentorship, and there was nothing like being on a sales floor, being in and around other sales professionals who are on
Oh
the
yeah.
phones, grinding it out day in, day out with super high energy. That was just contagious to be around. It was the best time of my entire sales career. And so I think that it's just a point to reiterate that you mentioned, like your environment is so crucial to
Oh yeah.
your development, along with the coaching and mentoring. That the minute that I finally had, like, yes, same drill, like had all free mentors, was always learning, picking people's brains, taking people out to lunch, picking brains of AEs when I was an SDR, and then of leaders and VPs when I was AE. The whole thing, similar to you. The first dollar I ever invested in myself, best investment I ever made. I've never stopped investing since. Um, Question for you that I'm curious about is like, with this day and age in remote sales, right?
Yeah.
Everything's gone digital. It's back in the, pre-COVID, it's like, yeah, let's go get in and around an awesome environment where we can feed off each other and learn and collaborate. Now it takes, again, back to the word here, is very proactive, intentional effort to go make that shit happen too, right? So it's, what are some of the things for those listening that it's like, okay, this is great, but I work fully remote, or, maybe there's opportunity to get into the office. How are you
Yeah.
thinking about that nowadays, versus just like with where the world's at today?
Yeah. I mean, my first question that I ask, my clients or people that I work with
Hmm.
that are remote is I say, hey, do you think it's in your best interest to keep working remote in general?
Mm.
You know,
Great
generally
question.
speaking, if you're less than 5 years into your career and you've never been a part of a high performance culture
Hmm.
and lived it,
Hmm.
I don't think remote's a good idea. That's just
Hmm.
point blank end of story.
Agreed.
Because as someone and I've ran teams in person and I've ran teams remote. So I've done both. The amount of time and energy that it takes to develop and teach someone of the same level of intelligence, caliber, skill coming in, it's double remote
Hmm.
as it is in person. Like it's a night and day difference, right? Ramping up is significantly harder.
Hmm.
Them growing significantly harder. It is just way harder. And there's a reason why so many of the biggest companies are like, no, we're going to return to office
Hmm.
because the numbers speak for themselves. When people are remote, they're not as effective.
Hmm.
And they'll say, like, well, we've had enterprise field sales for years and they're remote and, that could be successful. So, like, why can't I be successful as an SDR remote or SMB or AE remote? It's like that enterprise rep that's remote,
Hmm.
they were probably in an office for like 10 years,
Hmm.
right? In some capacity before they went remote, right? They have the foundation built,
Hmm.
right? Your former reps of mine that are enterprise reps, they work from home and they crush it, right? Absolutely slay. But they have those habits and skills ingrained in them,
Hmm.
right? I just started working with a former rep of mine again who's been remote for a while. And, we were sitting down and just doing like a reflection over the last quarter. And one of the things that he said is like, the first quarter of us, you're really working together again closely. He's like, wow, I forgot what it was like
Mm,
to get back in, professional shape, if that makes sense.
makes total
Right.
sense.
It's like when someone returns from injury in like a professional sport, they say, hey, getting back into game shape. Right. It's the same thing. And if you've never learned those skills or built those muscles in an office environment, it's way harder to succeed. And people don't realize how much you learn from just sitting next to people.
Osmosis is a real thing.
Osmosis. So, like, how many times were you like listening to your buddy make a cold call and you're like, yo, Johnny, like, I love that way you handled that, like,
Why I
non-interested
love
objection.
The Office.
That's it was awesome.
Yep.
Right. And you're vibing with each other. Right. You get a win, Johnny, high five.
Hmm.
Right. I feel so bad for SDRs that got a cold call from their
I could
kitchen
never
table.
imagine having started my career
Brutal.
as an SDR working remote. I would have never done it.
It's
Probably.
brutal. And, yeah, I probably agree.
Hmm.
Right. But like I was around this energy and environment.
It's the
And
best.
for folks that are like early in your career, if you're listening to this and you're working remote and you're struggling, like, hey, I promise you, if you're in the right environment in person, it is better that way.
Hmm.
It is better that way. It's got to be the right environment,
Hmm.
right? But you learn so much faster in person. And look, there's nothing wrong with like hybrid. There's nothing wrong with that. But the harsh truth is companies spend millions and millions of dollars, okay, on office space. Is the goal of a company to lose money or make money? It's to make money,
Right.
right? So would a company spend millions and millions of dollars on office space
Hmm.
if they didn't think it was going to make them more profitable? Now, you can argue, well, they don't know any better before COVID. Now, after COVID, now they know better
Hmm.
because startups they worked remote and they were productive before the environment, and then when the pandemic hit, even banks and everyone's like, we're going home. Everyone's got to go home. So it forced remote work on everybody, right? And everyone's like, oh man, like people are going to work from home forever, right? We're never going to go back to the office. Well, now, several years later, they have years of data. And, these massive companies, right? They know what the hell they're doing when it comes like making a profitable organization. And if they had the opportunity to say, hey, we have this $100 million lease for this massive skyscraper
Hmm.
in downtown Chicago, hey, let's let this thing run out, right? Even if we have no one in the office, we probably save millions of dollars not having to stock snacks, pay for cleaning crews,
Hmm.
do all that stuff
Hmm.
because people are just as productive at home. Like, no, like the data is abundantly clear. More things get done and the business is more profitable when people are in the office, right? So how does that trickle down to the employee? Well, that trickles down to the employee because each one of you as employees are tied to making that business more profitable. So it's in your best interest to go into the office to get that foundation and learn selfishly and treat this when you're working with your company as what it is. It's a business relationship.
Hmm.
You're not a family, right? Any company that tells you it's a family is full of shit because that's not true, right? You're a sports team. I think the founder of Netflix famously said that. Like you're a sports team.
Hmm.
You're there to perform. And what happens if you don't perform on a sports team? You get benched. Well, in sales, you get fired, right? You're there to deliver, and it's a business relationship. They're there to extract as much revenue out of you as possible for their shareholders. Okay. You are there to extract as much learning and skills and income for yourself as possible, right? That's what it is.
Hmm.
So embrace that, lean into it, learn as much as you can. And if you are earlier in your career, that's most likely going to be in the office. So do that,
Hmm.
right? And then you accelerate your path. So definitely strong feelings about
Yeah.
the return to office. I think it's in most people's best interest to get back in the office for it. Now, if you got a bad boss, if you got a bad company, that's a different equation altogether.
Hmm.
But just generally speaking, if you just look at this from like macroeconomics, there's a reason why people are in the office, right? So,
I have a mentor who took over as VP Global Sales for Smaller startup, but hired some reps from a previous company. They don't have an office around the greater Seattle area where we're all from. So what he would do is he would bring everybody over on Fridays to do like 4 hour cold calling blitzes with, he'd bring his BDRs in, his SDRs, AEs. They'd all sit around this table and they just bang out calls for 4 hours on a Friday, right? Just to enact this exact thing because there's nothing like hearing, your coworkers around you trying things on the phones, trying different questions, trying this sort of, closing idea, and then being able to actually collaborate with them in real time because nothing will ever replace face-to-face human interaction and energy, along with being able to do things and have those conversations in real time when you are in that, in just like the state of
Sure.
flow, right? Um,
And it's also an incredible way to fight burnout. So if you ever read the book Sapiens,
no, I've seen it. I have not read it.
yeah. So it's
Tell
been
me
a
about
while since I read it, but from my understanding, it's the reason why Homo sapiens
it. Hmm.
outlived the other versions. And I'm not a scientist, so don't fully quote me on this. It's like the number one thing that helped us survive as a species is that we're able to believe in something bigger than ourselves.
Mm,
Okay?
mm,
And work together towards a common goal.
mhm,
And if you think about it like this, when you're working remote, you're disconnected from the mission. You're disconnected on like what we're all working towards here, right? I mean, when you're in the office, those are some of your best times because not only are you learning the best, but like you're feeling the energy and you remind
Best
yourself
times
it's like
ever.
it's fun, right?
You're
When
connected.
you're connected, when your buddy's having his PDRs at his house, yeah, they're busting their ass, they're doing it, but like they all were high fiving, probably got a happy
Mhm.
hour after or whatever.
You're part of something
Best
bigger
time
than
you left,
yourself.
right? All of my friends, from my Salesforce days, we all reflect on like those are like the most fun times of our career
Hmm.
because we were all together, figuring it out together, right? When I was a CRO at the startup I was at, we didn't have an office. But what I would do is once a quarter, I would get everyone together in person. And I found the city that people were most centrally located to for us. It was Atlanta.
Hmm.
We flew in and we spent a day together, right? And we got a conference room at like a shared space and we just worked together for the day. We cold called, did whatever, like, we were role playing, having fun, right? In terms of the training and stuff they did, it wasn't like we did anything special. The thing that was special is that we were together,
Mm.
right? And it was the best because it was an opportunity for people just to connect on a human to human level. And people fail to realize that as human beings, we're we're meant to be together.
Mhm.
Um,
Mm.
you know, a question for you, like when COVID happened, did you have a moment where you were isolated for a while and then you had your first like real in-person human interaction and you're like, this is this incredible feeling. Did
Mhm.
you have that?
Considering that I was living in like the very bottom basement of this house with like the water pipes running through, like you could almost just hit your head on them. I was in this like super claustrophobic little thing.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, I came to appreciate the value of human connection that much more. And I think this is such an important point you bring in because, like the two words that I was thinking about earlier that you just reminded me of were buy-in, right? You're
Yeah.
so much more bought in to what you're doing and why you're, trying to progress and help the company grow. And of course, closing deals, making calls, all the things, but like you're part of something bigger than yourself and you're bought in order to help you be more all in as well, going back to your earlier point. So those are some of like the things I'm thinking about as you say that.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. I remember, this was a few months into the pandemic and me and my wife had just been locked in, like everyone was. And we had our first like weekend away with, some friends. And I remember we were there and like I just left that weekend and I just took a second to reflect. I'm
Mhm.
like, this was like one of the best
The
weekends
best.
of my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Like it was, and we didn't do anything special. We were just
Hmm.
together with other humans. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh my God, this is real.
Hmm.
This is very real. So, as a rep, you know, a lot of reps struggle with burnout. A part of the reason you're burnt out is because you're on an island,
Hmm.
right? So, going into an office, it's going to help you battle burnout because you have human in-person interaction. Like
Hmm.
the energy doesn't transfer through Zoom,
Hmm.
right? It just doesn't work like that.
Hmm.
So, unfortunately, at least today, maybe 50 years from now, 100 years from now, you know, smarter people than me will figure that out. Like right now, like that doesn't work like that.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, get in the office, get in the office. If for nothing more, just for your sanity.
Hmm. Even a couple takeaways for those listening here is like a couple things that you can immediately do, right? If you are, you have the option to go in the office, which a lot of, companies are offering the option to go in, right? If you are like totally isolated, totally remote, go find a coffee shop and get around just humans in general who are just
Yeah,
doing shit, right? Like talk for a longer period of time with the barista than you normally would. Like there's a coffee shop I go to right down the road. I'm there like 4 days a week and I'll go bang some work out there for a couple hours. I always run into somebody that I know, which inspires some new idea or perspective or conversation that would have never happened otherwise. It's like, nothing, a lot of things happen a lot more when we are out in the real world connecting with humans on a human level. So I just think that this is a super important conversation, and especially with a lot of companies, like there's opportunity to travel too, right? And so, companies like, for example, where I'm at right now is, went to Switzerland last year, went to an event in Florida, went to another event down in, or over in Minnesota, like, opportunities to travel and then connect with other colleagues, connect with
yeah,
customers and clients and prospects. And again, going back to the idea that it's going to allow you and help you to buy in more, to feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourself, to remind yourself that you are. And also, it's like you truly do develop and grow in person a lot, because it is like nothing can replace you having to engage right then and there on the spot with another human in front of you. So,
yeah. And look, there's a lot of perks to work remote. Don't get me wrong,
totally.
right?
I love
Yeah,
it.
but environments matter, right? And look, I work remote, so I'm not going to sit here and say your remote isn't fantastic once you're at a certain level.
Mhm.
But when you're building the foundation and you're learning, right? Those reps, they just magnify when they're in person
Mhm.
versus remote,
Totally.
for like accelerating your growth. Which I'm sure a lot of people that are watching this right now or listening, they're probably very growth oriented individuals,
Mhm.
right? And that's like an easy tactical hack. I mean, get a co-working space. See if your company will reimburse you. I was just looking the other day. You can get them for 20, $30 a day to go to a co-working space,
Mhm.
right? Get yourself in a different environment, where you're just around other people. Or those things help, right? Those things help for sure.
I think a final quick point here, and then we'll start transitioning into the
Yeah.
final four questions here. But you mentioned earlier about, going back to our conversation around coaching and investment in yourself and
Yeah.
your advice to individuals just leaving college, right? Not to join a startup, but to join a bigger size company, corporation. A lot of
Yeah.
those companies have amazing development programs, especially when it comes to sales. And they also have education assistance programs that they will literally give you money to go and invest in yourself. Right.
Yeah.
I worked at a globally recognized company. They gave us 5 grand, right, to be able to go per year to go and invest in ourselves. I put it right towards a sales coaching program, and I've never looked back since. And now invest all my own money after that as well. Had already been doing that beforehand, but just another point that I thought was important to bring up to your earlier point.
Well, what I'll say too, actually, around this is it's funny you mentioned the reimbursement program. So
Mhm.
I've been becoming an approved vendor for a few of the big names out there for sales coaching. And when I look at my clients, my best clients are ones that don't come from those companies because
Mhm.
when it's not your money, you don't have as much skin in the game, actually.
No doubt.
So I actually started to decline it as an option because I want more skin in the game from my clients because you get better results,
Hmm.
right? Because I don't want you to work with me if you're not serious about transformation, right? But Of course, if you can have that benefit, for sure take advantage of it. I'm not saying don't.
Hmm.
But the rule of thumb that I share with people is you should invest between 5 to 10% of your income every year towards your growth. So, the average 4-year university is anywhere between 80 to 130K.
Hmm.
Okay. That's like in-state tuition. Okay. So you've already dropped, if you got your bachelor's, most likely 100 grand on education. And great, that helped get you to where you are, right?
Hmm.
Well, what you invested in there got you here, but like that's not going to get you to the next stop. And when we talked earlier about me having that wake up call, I had this brutal moment where I realized, my company will never develop me as fast as I want to be developed,
Hmm.
right? So even just saying like, hey, I only, I'm only going to invest in myself if my company reimburses it. It's like, why, right? Why would you limit yourself to that? Because again, when you study the best people, not just sales, but like executives, athletes, entrepreneurs, you name it, right? They all are extremely aggressive around their growth, right? And if you just study that, it's like, hey, that's what you have to do. So, but like that's a general rule of thumb, because obviously people should put budgets in their life of like what to save, what to invest, so they're not overextending themselves financially. But build a budget for that, right? And when you're an SDR, if you're making 70, 80K a year, hey, 3, 5 grand, great, right? Hey, when you're making 200, 300, 400K, all right, well, 10, 20, 30 grand, right? Because the skills you're going to need to learn are going to be more expensive to acquire, but guess what? The payoff is bigger,
Hmm.
right? And when you think about executives and entrepreneurs that are investing in themselves, or athletes, I think LeBron says he pays $1 million a year just towards his health,
Hmm.
right? But that sounds like a lot, but it's nothing when you think about the ROI that he gets from that,
Hmm.
right? So it's like the ROI is massive, right? But you have to think about it as ROI and not a cost.
Hmm.
But if that's just some general thoughts, I mean, but for me, it's just having fun along the way, right? And helping people become free, and that's what matters most. But like, I want to chat with you because you got some big things coming
Hmm. That I
in
do.
your life.
Hmm.
And I want to dig into that because I'm super curious when you told me about this the other day.
Hmm.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think, ultimately, to tie off on that conversation right there is you mentioned the word compounding earlier, right?
Yeah,
And I think that investments in yourself teach you the skills in order to compound on your skills and then, therefore compound results. A lot of
yeah,
that, especially with what we're talking about right now, being income and being, results that are going to deliver year over year, infinite, indefinitely, right? Which is like, and I think just to preface, kind of like yeah, I use the EAP. I'm also somebody who's going to use that and take full advantage of it from a taking action, proactive standpoint. Had already invested tens of thousands into my own development prior to that. Took advantage of that. Also had coaches for just had a life coach, right? Paid
yeah,
have a therapist coach, executive coach, Ironman training coach, like all the things, right? To your point, somebody's been there. They probably can help you get there a lot faster than you trying to stumble and figure your way out. That being said, to your question about where I'm
yeah,
going is I say it smiling because I know that your mission is to, help sales reps live life on their terms, right? And
yeah,
I think I finally I'm at that point here, Justin, where I am ready to let go of some things in my life and go live life on my own terms for a bit of time. I'm stepping away from my career and I'm taking a full-blown life and work sabbatical. And in 3 days, I'll be boarding a plane on a one-way ticket to Bali, which is something I've always dreamed about doing. I've been in the sales game, for going on just north of a decade here. Tech sales about 7 years, 6, 7 years, something like that. And I think that from the work I've been able to do and the transformation that's happened, I believe that the tech sales industry and my career has given me and granted me this opportunity to do something like this, and I was super smart. I think, at least got myself to a financial foundation where I feel like I am ready to go do this the way that I want to do it. I always kind of regretted not doing a gap year after college or after high school, but maybe it just wasn't my time. Got right into the working force, got after it, and just had, 110% effort up until basically right now when I step on that plane here in a couple
Yeah.
days. I got today, tomorrow, Friday. I'm just trying to bang out deals and close whatever I can before then. And, it's funny, like you get, one more approval that things are moving forward. And I'm like, shit, should I push this out one more week or two more? And I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, like that's besides the point. It's like there's always going to be the next thing. There's always
Yeah.
going to be the next deal. This one way ticket to Bali that you've always dreamed about for over a decade is finally here. Go freaking do the thing and let go of all the other shit. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Thank you for bringing that up, Justin. What are you curious about with it?
Well, first off, I'm honored to be the person.
This is the
I'm
send
honored,
off right
maybe.
here.
I'm the send off, but I don't know if that's a good thing. Maybe I pushed you over the edge, but uh, I love that you're doing that. What was the moment in time where you made the decision? Because
Mhm,
people think about these things all the time, right? Bucket list things. Yeah, but I believe that your life doesn't change over years. Your life ultimately changes when you make a decision,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
And was there a moment that like comes to mind for you where it's like, hey, I'm now or never. Like I'm done pushing this off. Like, did you have that moment for you?
So that's a really good question, and I would say that it's been a work in progress for a good portion of a decade plus because this is something that I've always wanted to just buy a one-way ticket across the world. And I've always just had this dream. It's not that I have like yes, I have bucket list things to go do with,
Yeah,
and things to see and experiences to have, all those things. And yeah, like there's a list of them. But I've always had more deep down like this like burning desire to let go of my life and explore the unknown and embrace uncertainty and go learn cross-cultural intelligence and education about the world and just like let go of this life as I know it to be and go explore an entirely new side of myself, of the world, of the people in it. And so that being said, it's been on my heart for a long time. Every now and then it would pop back into my head. And then last year was like a very traumatic year for me personally and emotionally. And so, there was just to very briefly summarize it, the calling off of a wedding, the ending of a very serious relationship. And those thoughts came back in like full force of like, you know what, maybe it's time to like totally relook at my life in its entirety. And before I just continue climbing up this ladder, right, let me step off of this ladder. Let me make sure that is this a ladder I still want to be on, or is it not? Or is there something else that's just completely out there that I've never thought about, or I might not be thinking about? Or is there one person who it sparks an idea? Or do I go and build this yoga studio I've always wanted to build and podcast studio that's attached to it with the health and wellness center? Like, I've had like all sorts of those sorts of things. And then I was cleaning out my house maybe like last October, something like that. And I found this goals journal that I had written 12 years ago at the same coffee shop down the road I was alluding to earlier. And I flipped it open and I saw my number one goal handwritten on there was buy a one-way ticket across the world. Number two goal, live out of a backpack for 6 months. Number three was do it for 12 months. And I'm like, you know what? Like, now is the time to go do this. And so I started like the mental planning was there. Then I started actually like doing some things with research wise and starting to plan out like the timelines of how would this look to finish out the year here at my current role.
yeah,
Okay, probably want to stick around for Q1 for any deals that are going to slip and get my houses rented out, make sure all that's squared away. There was like logistics happening in the background, moving
yeah.
back into my parents' house, like the whole freaking thing. And so then yeah, I then one day, Justin, at 8 p.m. at night, I'm like, fuck it. I'm buying this ticket right now. So I went, I found a ticket, I bought it, And then I set a date that I was going to put in my notice because I wanted to give a full month plus of notice.
Yeah.
Like I have very strong relationships here at this company. It's been amazing company to work with and grow with. And the people here have been nothing but supportive from, CEO, CRO leadership all the way down to colleagues. So it's been really amazing. Just how it's all transpired. So it was a progress of micro decisions, I would say, until the day that, bought the ticket, booked my lodging for the first week. I have the first week and a half booked, nothing after that, and which is exactly how I want it. And then, yeah, then set my date that I was going to put in notice and then gave the notice. So it was like this sequence of events that kind of happened.
When that journal day,
Yeah.
was that the day where you were like, okay, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
that
do this?
was it, it was that I found another
Yeah.
handwritten tiny little journal. It's around here somewhere. Tiny little one I found in another backpack. Same shit that was being written down. I'm like multiple signs after having
Yeah.
already thought these things. I just said like now is the time. Like this is, God, universe, higher power, like dude, like here it is. Go
Yeah.
freaking do the thing before more time passes and you don't. Going back to the very, premise of our conversation, which is go take advantage of the life that we've been blessed with and given, right? And go take full advantage. So yeah, that's how I'm thinking
That,
about it.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, because you, number one, you put yourself in a position to be able to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where most people could say like, oh, that sounds nice for you, but I can't afford to do that.
I've
Well,
heard it a
let's think
lot.
about it, right? And but when there's a will, there's a way, and the universe was clearly telling you that,
Mm-hmm.
yo, like now's the time,
Now's the time.
right? And then it's up to you of what you do with that.
Mm-hmm.
And most people, they see the signs, and their gut tells them that the right decision, take action, but their mind gets in the way. What I always say to people is, the hard thing is never easy,
Ooh.
right? And the easy thing, right, is never really that hard.
Mm-hmm.
So if you focus on, what I say, like what courage is courage isn't not being afraid. Is courage is doing something while in the middle of being afraid, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it takes a lot of courage, like step away from a job that you're doing well at. It takes a lot of courage to buy a one-way ticket. The amount of uncertainty that's ahead of you is, incredible,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you know, it's quote unquote hard, right? Because you're stepping away from a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but because of that, uh, it's 9 times out of 10, it's the right thing. And for
Mm-hmm.
you, I mean, it definitely seems like it's going to be a life changing experience. So that's awesome. I'm
I
really happy
imagine
for
that
you.
it will. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you bringing
Yeah,
bringing light to this because I'm fired up to talk about it right now, just because I feel so passionate about it. And a couple last thoughts on it is like, I just feel like yes, everybody's circumstances are wildly different. I'm
yeah,
I'm cognizant of that. I get it. I just feel like for where I'm at personally in my life, like the more time that passes, I believe that the less likely you are to do something drastic that you've always thought about. At least that's how I feel about my own
yeah,
experience here in life. And kind of to your point about the courage thing is like, oftentimes fear doesn't go away. Like, yeah, it might diminish the more that we attack it head on, but it's always like just our courage to actually take action despite fear, in the face of fear, that continues to build over time the more that we can do that. And so I think that was a very important point that you made that I just wanted to lean into right there. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
is there anything? And if you don't want to, I mean, I'm just super genuinely curious.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there anything that you're hoping to get out of the experience, or are you going into it just completely open minded?
Both. Definitely completely open-minded. Definitely seeking, you know, what my personal truth is, right? And there's a lot of different questions that go into that for me, but I'm seeking things within myself. I'm seeking clarity on, decisions that have been made in my personal life. I'm seeking clarity on what's next for me in my life, life-wise, career-wise, location-wise. and also just being so totally open to the world and curious. I think if there's one word I keep coming back to, it's curiosity
Yeah.
and what that means for myself and like what my intuition is kind of leading me towards and things. And there's a bunch of super dope shit that I'm excited about, like to go and learn how to actually really surf once and for all. Like I can like stand up on, 1 to 2 foot waves on a nice big board, whatever, but like actually learning to surf or do self-defense classes like I've always wanted to do, right? And just give myself time and space to like lean
Yeah.
back into myself and my core. Those are the things I'm thinking about, along, Justin, with not having any expectation of anything, as well, and just releasing any and all pressures, all commitments, letting go of just a lot of things, right? And just like being totally open and seeing like where am I curious to go is how I'm thinking about it and approaching it.
Man, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. The
Yeah.
anytime I've done like exotic traveling,
Hmm.
I'm always just blown away by, other cultures
Hmm.
and seeing things. Me and my wife did a volunteer trip in Morocco,
Okay.
and just doing that for a week, it was just incredible to see these other cultures, how these other people live, and it was just an awesome experience.
Mm.
Seeing those types of things. So, from doing that, going like the pyramids of Giza, those
Yeah.
types of things, like
Yeah.
just seeing some cool places. So like, there's definitely there's definitely a lot of cool spots. You're gonna hit up, no shortage of that. But I think the big thing is like you're gonna come out of that. I mean, you're gonna transform over the next year
Hmm.
in some way, shape, or form
Hmm.
because you're immersing yourself,
Hmm.
right? And you know, with my clients, so I have masterminds that I host for my programs, and what I tell my clients is like, look, when you're joining the program for coaching or whatever, we're going to try to help you grow, increase your skills, uplift your mindset. But like the masterminds, that's where immersion happens, right?
Hmm.
Because if you're learning Spanish, which way are you going to learn it faster? In class in high school or going to Mexico where no one speaks English,
Right.
right? Immersion is where you're going to learn,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
even though you're not really necessarily seeking to learn, you're going there open and you're immersing yourself in a different environment for an extended period of time. I mean, you're gonna come out a completely different human being
Hmm.
in a very positive way
Hmm.
because of I think your intention going into it. So that's awesome.
I mean, it kind of goes back to that whole like, putting yourself in an environment, right? To then ultimately
Yeah,
transform, whether it's on the sales floor, or whether it's to learn a language, right? Or whether it's just to learn an entirely new way of living, changing your environment and putting yourself, strategically or not, putting yourself into a brand new environment that's going to challenge you, force you to grow, force you to adapt, think differently, act differently, right? Engage differently with people in the world. I mean, there's just so much value to be had in it. And you're 100%
yeah,
right. Like transformation is inevitable. And,
yeah.
I would imagine, for the better.
Well, I'm such a believer in immersion that
Mm.
um, I go to 1 to 2 immersion events every single year
Oh,
myself,
cool.
to grow in some way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
Because your just growth through these experiences um, are it's just so much more exponential
Hmm.
than in a remote environment, whether it's business, whether it's personal, whatever it is. Like, I'm such a massive believer in that to help growth. Obviously, we had the talk around like return to office, right? So
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
stems from a lot of the same things,
Hmm.
but it compresses the time that it takes to just grow in whatever area you're trying to. And like the fact that you're doing that for such an extended period of time, you know, you're going to have that stage of just decompression, which is probably going to be like stage one,
Yeah, no
right?
doubt.
And then from there, it's like, all right, off to the races.
Hmm.
So that's gonna be awesome. I definitely want to. Yeah, we should have another one of these. Like halfway through, your experience, and then at
Yeah.
the end of the experience,
Yeah.
and our conversation is probably going to be, completely different. By the other end. Um, of just you coming out the other side. So I can't wait. Maybe are you going to grow your hair out? Anything like that? Are you going to change any of that?
So funny. Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. I just don't know many answers, and I'm just so excited about not knowing. Right? It's
Yeah,
like who knows if maybe I will if it looks cool. Maybe if I have some ideas about some tattoos I might get. I've never got one. I'm just
there
like,
you go.
and then, because like I'll be traveling for like 6.5 months this year and then come back home. Sister's getting married and then probably do like holidays around here. I actually just talked to that local coffee shop down the road, like, hey, when I come back, could I like do some part-time work? I've always wanted to do some barista work. They're like, for sure. So, kind of like lining things up. And then next year, one way to Colombia is how I'm thinking about it. Then again, who the hell knows? Right. So,
Oh,
yeah. But,
Columbia is fantastic.
oh, you've been?
Yeah, well, I
Oh,
live in South Florida, so
oh yeah.
Columbia to get from Columbia from South Florida is the same distance flight as it is to get to Chicago.
Mm.
So,
I'd be in
um,
Colombia all the time.
yeah, no, we've been a handful of times. It's fantastic. I love it down
Oh, I
there.
can't wait. And I have some
Yeah.
friends who are going to Morocco in early September. So I was just talking with them about, some of the bucket list things of like, doing the Sahara, where they're going to be, where, potentially looking to outline some meetups and connections and some dope places. Got a friend moving to Australia. So I was just talking to her about like when they're going to be there, maybe I'll go see them in Sydney, pop over to New Zealand, like just open.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's great.
Yeah. So we'll have to see about
Yeah.
reconnecting then when at the halfway point, something like that. And man, this has
Maybe
been a
I'll
fun
meet you. Yeah.
conversation. This has been fun.
Maybe we'll do an in-person one in Bali. I don't know. We'll see.
You know where I'll be the next 1 to 2 months.
Yeah.
So you got hair like you could be a surfer. So
Yeah.
if you want to come join, by
Yeah.
all
I'll let
means,
it flow.
we'll rip it live. Yeah. All right, man. Well, Justin, it's been awesome to have you on the show. We'll go ahead and dive into the final four questions here that
Yeah.
I ask everybody that comes on the show. And my first one, back to our, coaching development, just, continuing to always get better in everything we do. What is not your favorite book, but what is the number one book that you recommend to people or gift to people?
This book has sold 80 million copies, over 80 million copies. And it's a book that helps set the tone for everything else because mindset comes before skill set. And it's Think and Grow Rich.
Mm,
And I love recommending that because a lot of salespeople say, "What's the number one book?" I'm struggling with this, struggling with X, Y, Z, prospecting, discovery, blah blah blah, you name it. And I always say, like, look, if your mind's not in the right place, nothing else matters.
hmm
So like, get your mind in the right place first, and it makes everything
Indeed.
else easier.
hmm
And that's just a universal book that
hmm
it was
Classic.
came out. I mean, I don't know if it's 100 years old at this point or close to it,
hmm
and literally sold over, I think it was 80 million copies last time I looked.
hmm
It's ridiculous. So no, that's a winner.
Yeah. Inner game, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. I mean, feel like it's such a good one. Haven't heard it in a while. Like read it early on in my sales career and
Yeah.
game changer. Like the number one thing, like to your point, that changed everything for me was just mindset. Mindset first, mindset before skill set is
Yeah.
what you just said. Just to reiterate that point. Um,
Well, we all have like limiting beliefs,
mhm,
right? And
no doubt.
the way I think about it is like, think about a fish, right? The fish grows to the size of the fish tank,
hmm
right? That it's in, right? And people have seen, well, if you put a bigger fish or even a plant in a bigger pot, right, it grows bigger, right? Well, the same goes to like your mental capacity for success
mm
and what's possible for you. And the first thing you have to do is like you have to raise the bar for your mind on what's possible, right? Because if you don't think something is possible, it'll never be achieved,
hmm
right? I think it was Confucius who said, those who think he can and those who think they can't, both are right,
hmm
right? So step one is like just continuing to elevate what's possible.
mm
And that's a great book to help you just kind of challenge your limiting beliefs
Mhm.
to just raise that bar because it's like an umbrella. It's a fish tank. You can expand your fish tank, you can grow to it. You can expand, the soil of where your plant is, it's gonna grow bigger. Or the same goes, for your success in life. Right. And I love that book for that.
Hmm. It's like that thermostat analogy you always hear, right? If you have it set at 85 degrees, it's gonna climb up to 85 degrees and then it's gonna stop. If you have it set for
Yep.
62, it's gonna creep down to 62, right? And you have the ability to change what that is. I think as Ed
Yeah.
Milet talks about that pretty often. Um, cool. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. Question number two is what is a quote or motto that you live by?
In order to be in the top 1%, you have to be willing to do it 99% harm.
Mm. What's that mean to
And
you?
what it means to me is I want to
Mm.
be in the top 1% or 0.01% in all areas of my life. Like people typically equate it to like success in the dashboard and income, but yeah, that's only like part of the equation.
Mm.
I look at it as my effort every day. Like that's the big thing. I look at my effort every day, my level of, intensity towards like my growth on, how I am as a husband, soon to be father, how I am as a boss, as a coach, as an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
right? As a son, as a brother,
Mhm.
all of those areas. I just want to be the best possible version of myself. And in order for me to unlock that, I have to be willing to do, not achieve, but willing to do what 99% won't. And it's really hard. But that's why 99% will never get there.
Mhm.
So that's how I think about it.
I love the, I mean, holistically well-roundedness because we are more than what we do. We are more than our career. Like, yeah, those things are vitally important. And, everything feeds into the other things in a sense, right? But I think just continuing to come back to a common theme here is just I love that you made the distinction between it's not achievement, but it's the action that you're taking, right? It's the
Yeah.
uncomfortable conversation with your wife, right? That you probably don't want to have, or, making the dinner when, you're tired and had a hell of a day, right? And about to be a father, right? Things are going to change. Like you're about to go through your own transformation as well. So, kind of just taking it all into consideration. I love that. Um, Stepping into question number three, probably ties into maybe some of the things we were just talking about, but might not at all. So for this one, it's what is a bucket list item for you here, Justin, that sets your soul on fire when you think about it?
It's my gas tank being empty.
Mm.
So the way I think about this, life is not about what we achieve, but who we become. And I know at some point, I'm gonna die.
Mhm.
And I just want to look back and say, I gave everything I got,
Mm.
because if I do that, that's all that matters. Like that's honestly, I think about that, almost every day.
Mhm.
It might sound a little morbid to think about death as much as I do, but I really do.
Mhm.
And it fuels me in a way to really just try to wring out, like a wet towel, as much out of my potential as I possibly can.
Mhm.
So I just want to know that when it's my time to go, hopefully many moons from now,
Mhm.
that my gas tank is empty. And wherever I land. I'm cool with that. But that's my bucket list. That really is it. Um, and all the memories and stuff that I make along the way will come with that. So
Mhm. Mhm. I mean, shit, you almost died twice by the age of 11. I think that's very fair to think about. I think death can be used as an important tool to help reshape how we think about things, right? Which I guess kind of ties in. Thank you for that response. It's not a response, way of living and thinking and being. is more appropriate. But it kind of ties into the final question here, which is, what would 85-year-old Justin say to your current day self?
He would say two things.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing it
Mm,
as a reminder to me of, keep going.
mm-hmm.
But then what he's also say is that all you got?
Mm,
To remind myself that there's probably still another gear
mm,
that I got to find.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's a combination of reminding myself of, hey, you're doing it, but you know, maybe you could take it up a gear. Let's see what else you got. So my future self is ruthless.
I've no doubt you know the answer to that question.
Yeah. Well, what I think about is,
Mm-hmm.
and this is actually like a decision making framework
Mm-hmm.
that I use, is whenever I'm faced with a tough decision, I always ask myself, 20 years from now, how am I going to view this decision?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it makes it easier for you to zoom out
Mm-hmm.
and take the emotion out of the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
And you view it as like a third party for it, right? We're all the best. Yeah, we all give our best advice to everyone but ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when I literally say that to myself, hey, 10 years from now, am I going to be happy with how I live today?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Am I going to be happy and proud? I love using the word proud of myself
That's
for the
excellent.
decision that I made today. So that very much falls in line with 85-year-old self saying, hey, you're doing it,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm proud of you, but is that all you got?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And those two things really help me.
I think something that's important that I'm taking away from what you just said is it allows you to reframe it to remove emotion, right? Because emotion can be so overpowering at times and can kind of muddy the waters on how we're thinking about things. And so to remove that side of the equation, not to say it's not important, but just to remove it, to then think like, would I be proud of this situation when I am 20 years down the road or 85, right? I think that is an important point to think about when other individuals, are going through a decision making process. I also, as I have been, continuing to make decisions in my life, I actually found a picture of myself from when I was like 3 years old the other day. And I remember looking over at him and little Colin, I was going through a very tough decision and all he said was be honest, and I was like, oh shit, like what would little Colin say? And he just said, be honest. And, it was like, I'm kind of now going back and forth between 85-year-old Colin and then also am I making little Colin proud too, right? So
Yeah.
it was kind of fun to reframe it that way. Yeah.
I mean, if you look back on, yeah, are you making the younger version of yourself proud?
Right.
But it's interesting. I just want to, because I know we're wrapping up, but just a quick thought on
Yeah.
the emotion equation. Because earlier I talked about magnifying
Mm,
emotion,
mm-hmm,
and now I'm talking about getting rid of it.
mm,
And I think it's important to know when you can harness it and when you shouldn't.
mm-hmm,
So the way I think about emotions is when I'm faced with a difficult decision where my gut knows the difficult thing to do, the more scary thing to do
mm-hmm,
is the thing that I should probably do. That's when I recognize those are the moments that I need to zoom out at 85-year-old Justin
mm,
to look back and say, yo, you know the right thing to do,
mm-hmm,
right? To remove the emotion. But then when I'm doing it, right? When I'm doing it and when I'm slacking and not doing as well as I could, that's when I look at our 85-year-old version of you who's going to be very disappointed,
mm-hmm,
magnify,
mm-hmm,
right? To keep myself on the path, right? So when I make the decision, I remove emotion, but to keep myself on the path or to change the path, I leverage emotion when I can if it's going to
mm-hmm.
fuel me in the direction that the 85-year-old version of me is going to be proud of.
Proud of.
So it's a game,
Yeah.
but and I'm still learning just like anyone else. I haven't mastered it, nor do I think I'll ever, but it's been good so far.
Mm. It's a combination of
Yeah,
leveraging the different tools and frameworks that we're talking about.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you. I think important distinction there. As we lean out here, Justin, any final words or any parting thoughts before we let you go here?
I mean, just a reminder to anyone who's watching this, hey, like you're doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and is that all you got?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Life's short. Take control. Live life on your terms,
Yeah.
because you're not getting out of this thing alive.
Mm. Justin J. Johnson, it's been a pleasure to have you on. This was an awesome conversation. We'll have to run it back maybe at the halfway point, or you just come
Yeah,
fly out to Bali and we'll rip it live from the beach in between surf sets.
yeah. All that. I'll let my hair down. We'll get some waves in. Love it.
For those that are, either looking to get in contact with you, right, or want to partake in your coaching programs, or have questions, or are curious, where can folks find you, and where can they reach out?
Yeah, you can find me on social media, Justin J. Johnson. All the platforms I'm on there. My website is thesoftwaresalescoach.com. So check me out there. And then, if there's something that I can give to you, for folks, I can send you a link for people, like get a free guide for folks who are in sales.
We'll put that
You
in
know, I,
the show notes.
yeah, put in the show notes. I can give that to
Hmm.
you for folks, just as like a thank you for listening. There's a 40-page guide that I recently came out with that literally is, I spent, I think it was like 60 plus hours putting all these notes together from like a decade of learnings, a bit over $1,000 for someone to like just package this thing up so it's as actionable as possible. So if someone's in sales and, they're struggling to, getting ghosted, feel like their deals aren't progressing as much as they would like, I put this thing together in a way that was frameworks, scripts, templates, literally you say this when they say this, like that
Good, I'll
level
take
of
this.
tactical,
Sounds great.
right? I wanted it to be so powerful that they don't even need me to transform the results. So I actually just came out with that just, this past week. So I'll give that to you and put in the show notes, and people can get that and just, go nuts with it.
That's sick. Very, very cool milestone that, I know that there's a
Yeah.
ton of yes work, of course, but so much experience behind the actual asset that you're delivering here. So massively valuable. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes. Thank you in advance for that. And so with that, I think we can go ahead and wrap things here. Appreciate you coming on, and take very good care of yourself until we talk here soon enough.
All right. Talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Justin. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Seeds of Success podcast. If you got to the end of this episode, can you please do me a huge favor and leave a 5-star rating and review? This helps me be able to reach out to bigger guests and also be able to get access to special events and activities that otherwise would not be possible without your support. So if you could please take just 3 seconds and leave a 5-star rating and review, it would mean the world to me, and I will see you on the next episode.